How did a small fishing village on the edge of a muddy river grow to become one of the biggest, wealthiest and most luxurious cities in the world? Well, it all started with opium. In the early 19th century, the British had become the biggest drug pushers in the world. And by the 1830s, opium had become China's biggest import. The British were peddling the drug, and in exchange they were getting all the tea they wanted, and they were draining all the silver out of China. An estimated 10 million Chinese became addicts, and when the Qing dynasty tried to stop the trade, the British started a war, the Opium War. Britain won easily and extracted a very high price. They took Hong Kong, they got access to Chinese ports, they got $21 million in reparation, and they got the right to establish a concession, a self-governing area in Shanghai. William Gladstone wrote in his diary at the time, "I am in dread of the judgments of God upon England for our national iniquity towards China." The city was soon carved up into concessions, administered by the British, French and Americans, all independent of Chinese law. Each colonial presence brought with it its own particular culture, architecture and society. By the 1930s, Shanghai had become the financial hub of Asia, its most modern city and its most important port. Trading and banking firms came from all over the world to set up shop along the Bund. Trade in silk, porcelain, tea and opium continued apace. Opium became the driving force behind Shanghai's unstoppable rise and its descent into debauchery. The city was called alternatively the Pearl of the East or the Whore of the Orient. Shanghai became a brash cosmopolitan place, seedy yet glamorous, obsessed with making money. It became a decadent world of prostitution, vice, violent criminal gangs and corrupt police forces. It was a city of quick riches, ill-gotten gains and fortunes lost. The domain of swindlers and socialites, of gangsters and pimps, owing more to Marlene Dietrich than Mao Zedong. But the city also reeks of history. In the midst of all this glamour and degradation, China finally became a republic under President Sun Yat-sen. The Chinese Communist Party held its first meeting here in 1921. During the 20s and early 30s, while Shanghai was enjoying life, the civil war between Republicans and Communists was raging across China. And in 1932, the Japanese invaded Manchuria. In the 1930s and 40s, the city weathered raids, invasions, and then outright occupation by the Japanese. The party was over. By 1949, Mao's communists had defeated Shanghai Shek's nationalists. Most foreigners had left Shanghai, and the communists took control of the city and all of the privately held businesses. There were many dark years under communist control and the Cultural Revolution. There was widespread panic and shortages of almost everything. Shanghai became a grey, sombre city. In 1976, Deng Xiaoping initiated his open and reform policy. This enlightened policy unleashed the phenomenal potential of China, and it heralded the renaissance of Shanghai. Lured by low taxes, new factories and cheap labour, inflows of foreign investment, which began as a slow stream, quickly became a raging torrent. And the rest, as they say, is history. The Pudong area, which had been mosquito-infested farmland, became a special economic zone and the area of major prosperity. By the mid-1990s, more than a quarter of the world's high-rise cranes were looming over Shanghai, and the Oriental Pearl Tower became a symbol of the new Shanghai. By the end of the 20th century, the city had built 2 metro lines, a light railway system, a $2 billion international airport, and a $2 billion elevated highway. Its crowning glory was the 2010 World Expo, which attracted 76 million visitors in 6 months. It became truly a world city. This then is the story of Shanghai. It has survived wars and invasions, foreign takeovers and warlords, nationalism and communism. A city that grew from rags to riches.